this is what people are listening to.
Right.
Like no one cares about, what do they call it, legacy media anymore. No one wants to hear that. They want to hear
live.
They want to hear conversations. They want to hear Rogan try to debunk a bunch of stuff and then get proven wrong and then own it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what people want. So
that's a really good way to put it. You're just looking for people to be authentic, and that's basically why you're here, because you model what we're looking for. We want to see people reaching out and making a difference, and you've led the charge. You've got a handful of podcast episodes, 172.
Yeah. Well,
that's a lot. I mean,
it's taken so long.
I bet. And there's people out there that have thousands of episodes.
Right.
Wow. They got a team or something behind them, but that helps.
Right. That'd be cool. I would love to retire and be recording like 3 times a week.
Yeah. As your job, revenue coming in, just doing the good work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. You guys ready to go?
Sure.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris.
I'm Ben.
I'm Jim, and you're listening to the Priority Traffic Podcast.
Wow. Jim, thanks for coming in today.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to have you. So, everybody, this is going to be the first of the series, what we're going to call a guest series. We're going to bring people in from our community, the first responder community, just the people out there trying to make a difference in their community. Sit down, have a conversation with them, talk to them about their goals, where they're headed, where they've come from, what they see on the future, and try and just get the best story we can. So, Jim, thanks for coming in today.
Appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. It's how I think is how we'll grow this community, kind of providing outreach and stuff for first responders and their families.
Absolutely. And that's I think what aligns us here is that intersectionality of providing a service for people that we work next to,
right?
And for our brothers and sisters out there. So I think it means a lot to have you here.
Absolutely.
You've actually done quite a bit of work in the first responder community, haven't you?
Yep. A long time.
Yeah.
And just wrapping up my 19th year. So,
Jeez.
And then what's wild is if you take, so my whole adult life has been Army. There's a handful of really stupid job years. And then that's how I figured out I needed to be in the first responder community, was just doing like mundane civilian jobs. And I had like a buddy, you should join the fire department.
Yeah.
It's just like paid on call right here in Grand Blanc. So I did that, and which led to EMS. And then.
How old were you when he told you you should do this?
Dude, I was 34. So.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I had the military, the chunk of time in between, not really figuring out like, why does everything suck? And then, got into the first responder community and we're like, oh, that's it. Because the service is like how I'm wired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how you grew up with the Army. So what was your job in the Army?
Well, those were different days. So I went in 1990 and I enlisted to be a scout. Did the training to do that. First, like early on, went to Korea as my first permanent duty station. I got to Korea, got picked up by a second lieutenant to be his driver, because over there's no POVs. So those guys would have like those. I was responsible to take them all over. Like Camp Casey is where I was stationed.
Okay.
And basically be his assistant.
Well, so what's a scout before we get too far?
19 Delta, yeah. Cav Scout is just like forward observer.
Okay.
It's where your snipers come from.
Gotcha.
I didn't do that. Never had the opportunity, because that military, that time, or like that generation of soldier, you kind of went where they needed you. So I was the dude's driver for all of Korea, so I wasn't attached to a scout platoon.
Gotcha.
Moved back stateside to Fort Lewis, same guy. He was promoted to captain, like first lieutenant, then captain. Still his driver.
Wow.
So for kind of those last years, he was the officers will have like their commands, then they have to do staff positions. So it'll be like a battalion or like a company commander.
Sure.
And then they'll do that for a while, then they'll have to do a staff position. So he was the S4, which was like the supply captain. So under that command, under that structure, they needed someone to be in the motor pool doling out fuel, so I became fuel supply and his driver. And stateside, you don't need to drive him that much unless you're training.
Sure.
So
You got good at driving, it sounds like.
got good at driving Humvees, right? And then fuel truck after that.
Ooh. So did you get any special driving training, or was this just like basic stuff?
Yeah, I went to like basic training, AIT, and then they send you to Fort Dix, New York to do driver's training.
So there is a school for it.
Yeah. Well, that is a pretty cool school too, because you drive everything, man. Like semis, all this stuff. I thought it was cool. A lot of people thought I was an asshole, but but like learning how to back those big boys up.
For sure.
You know,
that would be helpful in the service, right? Like fire service, even, because you don't get a driving school. You just show up and go to work, and one day you're driving.
Yep.
That's tough for me.
Yeah, well, they got EVOC. There's like a little certificate you get, but
sure.
Is it like in depth?
No.
Yeah. You learn on the job.
Yeah.
And
really, they teach you how to run that pump.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
The driving is secondary.
Yeah. Anybody can get there, but just make sure that everybody's getting the water when they need it, how to get the water, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And you're trying to train that next guy to run the pump quick so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Train your replacement right away.
Yeah.
So you can move on.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, though. So you're in driver school. What is the hardest thing about learning how to drive trucks? Like, do you remember having anything that stuck out? You're like, wow, that was a real pain in the butt, or did this all just happen for you?
It was backing up like the big, like the semi, the fuel tankers, the huge ones.
Mm-hmm.
Learning, it wasn't too bad of a learning curve, but you're learning like certain markers on the trailer to see. You get it to that point and you won't jackknife and then kind of reverse the turn and make it straight and stuff. But like driving a Humvee is just like driving a Jeep.
Sure.
You know, it's just easy. Rough. It's definitely not like the production model.
No, I bet not.
Suspension's a little rough on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was good. It was pretty fun training.
I got a question from, so you enlist, you go and say like going to this scout platoon or a scout job.
Right.
And you probably have a mindset of like, I'm about to go do some badass stuff.
Yep.
When you end up and find yourself in driving, how did you feel about where you like first thought you were going to be to where you ended up?
Well, like most guys, I was super pissed at the recruiter.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not what he said was going to happen. But, you know, then you just kind of go with it because, you know, there's the misconception is that you have a bunch of rights as a soldier, and that's not the case. They're going to put you where they need you. So just kind of learn with that. Like, that's the op.
Right.
This is where you have me, I guess, is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Right.
where you fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did that kind of transpire again when you got back into like civilian lifestyle? You said you had like these jobs that were just normal people jobs, and I don't know, maybe you're doing mail or whatever, and you're like, I need to do something different. I need to get the blood flowing.
It was difficult. You know, like the first job I had outside of the Army, we still lived in Washington at the time, but in Tacoma.
Mm-hmm.
I was working in a door factory, so like they would build the door, and then this thing would come across my bench like this, and there'd be little pitch pockets that you would have to repair.
Okay.
And then like first week or so, like you got to stay for an hour for overtime for production. I was like, I don't know what that is.
Right.
Whatever. And the foreman was like, "This is where you stay longer and you get paid time and a half." And I was like, "What? You pay more? I'm just used to staying until they say I can leave."
Yeah, right.
Whatever. But that was difficult because a lot of those guys were doing lines off the table. That's like the doors, and everybody would leave and go on lunch and drink.
Oh, doing lines like
Coke,
lines of hard drugs.
Yeah, like lining up rails of cocaine.
Right off the door.
Right off the door. And they'd be like, "You got to get with the program." Like, well, I ain't gonna.
That ain't my program.
Yeah.
Right.
I got doors to make.
Yeah, these people are working some overtime.
It was weird.
That is weird.
But then that's how the civilian, like, I had a difficult time to answer your question. I had a really hard time trying to, like, reacclimate. Because they don't do that, right? They break you down and make you a soldier, but they don't reverse that.
Right. They don't unbreak you.
Right.
You're just broken, and now you're kind of built this way.
Right. And they send you out, and you're trying to sort out how to be in the world again.
That would be such a shell shock, and that's like culture shock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you gave up culture to assimilate to the military culture, right? And then civilian life is not the same thing,
Right.
And so like structure to
none.
Negative structure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That'd be unbelievable.
Doesn't sound fun.
So was that pretty trying on you mentally and physically? Like, what did you do to overcome that?
I just honestly, man, I'm 53 and I still at times struggle with like civilian mindset.
What would you say civilian mindset is?
Like the opposite of what we all do,
Right.
to where there's no like chain of command. Like if you're my direct leader,
Right.
I go to you and that's it.
Right.
You know, if those steps have to be taken, but being around people, even in my industry, because it is civilians,
Right.
but it's not pedestrian, if that makes sense.
I think that's a good clarification.
Yeah.
Right. Civilian job, but not pedestrian. Like
Right.
pedestrian is just
Right. And it's hard for people to, you know, they'll say, well, this is just a civilian job. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's,
right.
There's structure, there's rank.
Yeah, you're held to a higher standard. And
Right.
Like you are a true professional in your job. People look at you
Right.
for your advice, your knowledge, for when they call 911, you're the one showing up. So like you can't call 911. You know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. It really has a lot to do with fulfilling the expectation of the customer. Right.
Right.
Like, so as a pedestrian job or a civilian job, it's different, but our standard of like good, what would you call it? Good business is saving lives and putting our life on the line. Like that's not standard amongst civilian jobs.
Right.
Right.
So I think that definitely changes the, what would you call it? The barrier to entry a little bit. But to call it a civilian job just seems like you're undermining the actual like difficulty and the real demands of that profession.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me.
So it took a long time. It took until the time I got out of the Army, which was 1996. And like, this will be wild for you guys. My actual date of hire to Grand Blanc Fire is 9/11.
Oh, wow. What year?
2001.
Oh,
so the day. Wow. I was in Chief Harm's office and he was doing the intake interview. And on the phone, because I do like MUSAR.
Okay, yeah.
Or USAR, it would be just, and he's trying to figure out if he needs to send guys. And he's bringing me in and he's like, are you sure you want to do this? You know? And I still have a little bit of that Army arrogance. I'm like, dude, there's no high rises in Grand Blanc, man.
I'm fine.
I think I'll be okay.
Right.
It'll be fine. So, yeah.
Damn.
On the day.
That's heavy, right? That's quite the coincidence.
Yeah. That's why it was just a huge coincidence. But at this, like, to look at it now, it's pretty heavy.
This right? We call it coincidence then, but looking back, like it probably impacted you more than you even imagined.
Yeah.
So how long were you with Grand Blanc Fire after that?
So I was, I think, 2 years in, 3 years maybe, and the chief wanted to start running medicals because for whatever, I don't know why, didn't understand the startup price. But then he had a bunch of us, and he was like, hey, you want to be EMT? I want to start running medicals. I'm like, sure, I guess. I was like, how much does that cost? Where do I go? And he says, well, I'll make you a deal. If you'll do the hazmat operations course, I'll pay for EMT. And that was so awful that I knew it would be. So I honestly debated it. I was like, I'm going to have to give that some thought.
Yeah.
I don't know who wins in that scenario.
So anyway, I ended up doing it. Fire department paid for my EMT program. And like as soon as, like during clinicals, I was hooked to the medical side.
Then this is EMT basic clinicals.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Where did you do your clinicals at?
Genesis here in Grand Blanc. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you see some pretty good stuff up here?
Like straight away, first night, they brought in like a motorcycle, like dirt bikes.
Yeah.
This couple was riding dirt bikes, and the young female had a pretty significant head trauma.
Oh no.
So like the first thing I'm seeing is trauma, and like in the trauma bay with them and seeing all the things happened.
Oh gosh, there's probably a lot to take in that moment.
Tons going on, and I was like, oh, this is for me.
Oh, that was like
that's
you
the
felt
that's
it.
the moment. I got to be on this side. which is weird. We've talked about this before because
Yeah.
when you come through the fire service, the box is not where anybody wants to be.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's trying to count their days until they can get off of it
Mm-hmm.
and get on the bigger box, the engine.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. You want to get on that engine or that squad, and it's fun for me to talk to fire guys, and they'll
Yeah.
be like, "What? That makes no sense."
Yeah, that I'm surprised, knowing that you came from the fire, that you would be more biased towards not surprised, but like that's uncommon, I
Mhm.
guess I would say.
Yeah.
I think it kind of breaks down to like these different pillars, and like I always say, like you have spears to sharpen, you know. And so I started out in Flint Fire. They do like tier 1 medicals, and I found myself just holding pressure until somebody else arrived, you know, and they pass them on. But we had an oxygen tank and a couple band-aids. There's not
Mhm.
much.
Right.
And so I did a couple of years just going and fighting fire, and then I made the transfer to Southfield, where then like in medic school, get my medic, and now I'm on the box. It's like I'm pretty confident in my abilities in fire, but going and being like, oh, now you're the one in charge, like on all these medicals, it's like, well, I was good at what I did. Now I got to be good at this too. And so it's like it still is attractive to me to be a good medic and like give it my all, but there's just more to learn, and that's like you kind of uncover this field where like I always say, like, when's the last time you did something for the first time? It's like, well,
Right.
once you figure out you did something for the first time, you probably suck at it, so let's get better at it. And that's
Right.
still my mindset now. Granted, I'm a fresh medic, like I've only been doing it a year,
Sure.
and I'm sure after 10, 15 years it might kind of fade away, but the whole new challenge is
It's
what
novel.
Mhm.
yeah, it's attractive to me.
There's something fun about learning, and you know, it really is about uncovering things, and the deeper you dig, the deeper it gets, right? Like
Yep.
you can be steered so many ways. There's, I don't know, 10 billion cells in our brain. Like who knows what all those are for yet? And
Mm-hmm.
learning is super, super important. So I think that's something to consider, is that novel experience. Like, man, that was cool. I want to learn more about that or understand it, because
Absolutely.
now you have that stress response that you're like, what was that? I don't even know what that was.
Mhm.
I got all sweaty and nervous, but I was able to focus and do a job. Like, what is happening to me?
Yeah.
That's super interesting, though. What was one of your favorite things coming through the Grand Blanc Fire? Like, I don't think how many do they have on staff now, or did they when you were coming through?
Well, when I first started, it was like full paid on call.
Okay.
And so I would be on there for a while, got into EMS, and then just was busy with that,
So they had EMS, like,
and not in the fire department.
oh, okay, gotcha.
So I got my EMT, was still doing weird jobs,
Right.
and then like I worked for an anchor making guy,
Oh wow.
like just boxing anchors for a while. It was terrible.
Was that local?
But like like in Fenton, that guy was. But like, so I had an opportunity to go full time as an EMT.
Nice.
You know, worked for a company in Flint that didn't pan out, then got moved to Swartz.
Okay.
And so as I would get busier running calls, because at that time we were on 24-hour shifts.
Okay. As an EMT, 24-hour, and you're about 36, 34, 36?
By that time, I get hired there, I'm 34.
Okay.
So 35, 36, then I'm like, I'm going to do medic.
Sure.
Because I'm an EMT, and it seems like living life with a learner's permit.
Right.
I want to do the real stuff.
Right. The real stuff.
So I jump into a medic program, and during those years, I would take like little short leave of absence from the fire department.
Okay.
At that time, it was Jim Harms was the chief, and he was all about it. If
Sure.
you're doing something to grow, to make yourself like he was honestly very selfish. Like with if you're making yourself a better asset for me,
Right.
Right. Oh,
I'm
right.
going to support what you're doing.
Gotcha.
If you're just trying to go over here
It'd be better for your own purposes.
and go do whatever that doesn't apply, you just
Sure.
need to leave the department.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was so I just had, kind of work that out with them. So I would take short leaves of absence. And then the second time I did that is when the township decided they wanted to have full-time engineers.
Okay.
So they fought for that millage for a couple years, did that. And then I came back to go active again. And they're like, well, we do things different. So now we have 5 guys that are full-time engineers.
Okay.
And we have the rest of you have to be a part-time employee with Grand Blanc Township, and then you have to like pick up shifts.
Oh, so it's a mandatory. Now you're working a job.
Now you're working a job, and you have to pick up so many hours
Wow.
in the week, which you have to pick up 24 hours, but you couldn't do 24 hours in a row. You have to pick them up in 8-hour blocks.
That's a lot.
And so it's just, and then so the part-time guys were not the full-time guys. The full-time guys were in the union, were in the international. Right. The part-time guys were not. The full-time guys were getting to go to all these
like trainings and stuff.
If you guys can explain why an engineer needs to go to a bomb tech class, right? But they got to go, and the rest of the guys didn't. And then I left the fire service for a long time, right at the point where they tried to do a contract for the part-time guys.
Okay.
And these two fools, it was like the worst negotiation of all time. Like, got nothing.
Nothing.
I go in there for a training, and they're like, well, we're going to vote on the union thing. And at that point, I was like, do we have something that I could read?
Oh, they didn't have anything?
No. Like, the union rep was late to the ratification of it. So she shows up. Everybody, I voted no way.
Right.
Because it was a write-in, and I wrote hell no and put it in. And they come back, and here's why. They come back after landslide victory for the union. The contract had the life insurance. It was nowhere in the contract. So I asked her, I was like, so what about the death benefit?
Right.
The quote was, well, we know you had one, right? So once we find it, we'll just, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to sign something that says what we're going to get. Not
That's not how that works.
Imagination.
And these dudes were getting mad, man. And I'm like, dude, they could bring in, you could give your wife an arch card when you die.
Right.
Because they aren't.
Make double on me.
Right. They aren't laying out what it is.
Yeah.
They're just saying there is one.
Right. And they're not defining it. It's not defined anywhere. That helps.
I'm like, before you guys negotiated this horrible deal, it was $150,000.
Right.
Which is not much, but it's something.
Sure.
Better than nothing. And it's so all the things. Pay. We really negotiated for pay, and it went up by 68 cents. I'm like, you guys did a bang up job.
Yeah.
And then I was like, dude, I'm too busy.
Sure.
And then I got to, listen, I'm too busy with my own training, medical proficiency stuff to commit.
Yeah.
So let's not waste each other's time. And then Harms was still the chief, and then he retired. And then I was like, never going back. And then when Grand Lake City, when that whole debacle, which is a whole nother episode, but when they split that and the city decided they were going to build their own department.
Yeah.
Dennis Smith came in. He came off the shelf as well. He was a Fenton guy.
Okay.
That department went up in, I think, 90 days.
Wow.
From nothing except a building that was empty to an engine. And we got an engine from Flushing that was terrible, and a squad, and all the equipment.
Holy smokes.
Ready to go live. So he reached out to a bunch of us, said, hey, you guys want to come off the shelf? And
come back to work.
Come back to work.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll give you a few years and get these new dudes trained up. And
sure.
Peace out again.
Wow. That must have been a pretty interesting adventure.
It was so cool.
Yeah, you're on the ground floor of this, not to call it makeshift, but jumpstart fire department that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
What was a big obstacle you came with just dealing
with that stuff?
With that, yeah.
Equipment. They went to those trade shows where you just go in and there's trucks. And they would go in and say, okay, we need this. And the dealers or the companies, the manufacturers, it doesn't work that way. And Dennis would be like, well, it's going to have to, because 85 days from this moment.
Yeah, we need something.
Right.
And so that's they just got a Quint, a custom spec'd out one finally.
Finally had their own truck made.
Yeah, the rest of them weren't spec'd out.
They were just models.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up with a model. We got a ladder, and it was a pre-built, or just a showroom thing. I don't know exactly how it didn't get spec'd out by us.
Right.
And it's not ideal.
Right.
You're pretty short compared to some 6'4" guys. I work with a couple of those guys, and they would sit in that thing, and they'd have to bend their head over because they didn't have the elevated top of the hood there. It was just a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So we had to lower the seats like 6 inches to the ground. So now you're sitting on the ground and your feet are basically like out. It's ridiculous.
That was like the truck they bought off Flushing. It's like those old Flint fire trucks where you're in the back seat and like the seat's
Steel right
here.
in front of you.
Yeah. So and you still got the tank that was like aftermarket put in there. So you're trying to like, got these dudes that are super thick trying to get
dressed. Oh gosh. It's hard when you're not thick.
Yeah.
You got to have like super good shoulder mobility. You got to have like pretty good endurance to get your stuff on and get in that air pack without like getting tangled up in your seatbelt. That's the worst. Like, excellent. Grab that. Have you ever done that?
No.
No, I've done that. That sucks.
Don't what now?
You throw your arm over, throw your SCBA on,
Oh yeah.
and then all of a sudden you buckle up and you get out, but you've like encapsulated your left arm and you get out of the truck and you've strapped yourself to the
I've
truck.
done that.
It happens. It happens pretty frequently, I think, in the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say I'm the only one that did it, but I'm sure.
It's your story, man.
Yeah, it's my story. It happens. But yeah, the fire service brings a lot of weird perspective to stuff. And, you know, we were talking the other day. We tend to focus on how awful things are making us. And like we tell everybody, you're going to be burned out, you're going to be stressed out, you're going to commit suicide. And like, no wonder it happens all the time. We keep talking about it. We keep programming these people to think that that's what happens. So when you focus on that happening, what happens?
Right.
It happens.
Yeah. That's kind of like the training piece too, coming up through EMS, which is like my pet peeve. This is what with our stuff I'm trying to fight is the everything's terrible. This is the worst job. I hate people. You know, I'm like, you don't, because you wouldn't stay here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what seeing people that are like, I hate this department, I hate this job. It's like, why are you here, man?
Yeah, just
like quit telling people that you hate it.
Right.
If you're still here, like go somewhere. Like,
right.
If you hate it so bad,
Yeah.
just you're free to leave.
Right. You know, and that's the thing coming up. I can remember being trained in that fashion that was like, everyone's lying. Everybody is a frequent flyer.
Right.
You know, everything, you're in the city, so it's all BS. And I'm like, but it's really not.
Yeah. Of all the cities to be in, that's one that has the least BS probably.
Right. Well, yeah, you're on Flint Fire. It's the different level of respect that these people have for you and appreciation. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's not what you're expecting.
Yeah. So I've never worked in Flint. So what do you guys mean?
Like, you are appreciated for showing up. You know, obviously there's times you go in people's homes and they're mad.
Sure.
You know, but it's
no big deal.
Right. Kind of my MO is I always acknowledge who is the perceived leader in the home every time. You show a little respect, and then it goes a long way, and then you start whatever the operation, whatever the mission is you're doing.
Yeah.
And it goes, it simplifies everything.
Link up with the gatekeeper right away, build that relationship, and now you're free to pass. But if you don't respect that initial encounter, that, like you said, the leader of the household, now you're just disrespecting people the whole time, and they don't even want you there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people look at you, like I said earlier, like they call 911. You're supposed to go and help their worst day, potentially worst day, and you walk in and you got an attitude, you don't want to be there. People read that, like people feed off it, and like people with attitudes, they'll tell you get out of the house. They'll call somebody else, or they'll start worse problems. So being genuine and like understanding like what people are calling you for. That people respect you when you care to do a good job, especially in that city.
Absolutely. And if you can so you're called to help, right? You got two choices. You can help make it better, and you can choose not to make it worse.
Right.
But if you're going to come there and you're going to, like, we're partners on the rig, and you're being snotty, and I'm trying to be helpful, or I'm being a real dickhead, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, that negativity, that non-helping thing, I could do without that.
Right.
Like, you don't have to help me, but do not make it worse. Don't add fuel to this fire.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's wild. I probably you remember seeing some of the crews, some of the ambulance services show up when you guys show up, and they're just slow rolling.
Yeah, you're sitting there pumping on somebody's chest, and you're like, all right, let's get it in here. It's before all the Lucases and whatnot. Yeah, we didn't have anything, man, and it seems like there's a heavy side for the people that don't want to be there and a heavy side for the people that do. But there's not a lot of people kind of in the middle. People are with it. And like I saw with the county medics, they were awesome. But the private service, it was hit or miss. They'd show up and like they'd have attitude or a chip on their shoulder. And it's like, listen, like we're here to do the same job. You know, like we're trying to make life easier on you. We're here to help out this family. Let's all kind of pitch in, do our thing, and just move on. And
same purpose, different uniform.
Right.
I mean, it's all the same goal. Like we need to package this person up and get them to the life-saving hospital or intervene in the field, and it's all the same purpose.
Right.
And when you're not working together, you're working in the wrong way.
Right. You know, there's a lot of times too, especially in private service, where those guys are like, oh, I hate it when Flint Fire shows up. Like, it's makes no sense to me, because they usually can get there quicker, and they usually have at least oxygen, hands on. Sometimes full set of vitals are done.
Yeah.
You know, especially now, could be coming from anywhere. I could be coming from here, to Flint on a cardiac emergency. There's just
What is that? 15 minutes?
Yeah.
That's a long haul.
15-minute response.
Jeez. And if they don't get started on the chest, you're just playing catch up at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a lot of stress. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on everybody, especially the person in the home sitting there for those 15 minutes. Like, that's got to be the longest 15 minutes ever when your loved one is KO'd on the ground, and you're
waiting
oh
and
my
waiting.
gosh.
yeah, where's the truck that's going to take him away?
Yeah.
To better help.
That clock slows down so slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that'd be awful.
It's wild. It's wild now.
Yeah. What is your typical response? Like, do you station in Grand Blanc?
No.
I know you were the other day.
We were the other day. We have several posts, that we cover. No one's really covering Grand Blanc due to there's an agency that's doing all kinds of contracts and stuff.
You said doo-doo.
Due to one agency who is like, they have contracts in certain municipalities.
Okay.
So they're not covering. So what happened is Grand Blanc doesn't want to be involved in that at the township and city level. So it goes uncovered. Because it used to be, the thought was, well, there's always somebody leaving Genesis.
Right.
So kind of it's covered. But MMR has decided, well, we're going to post up down here.
Oh, nice. I mean, somebody is, I guess.
Someone's got to. So we do mostly like Beecher and North.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we take the majority of the city calls.
Right.
And then, so like Flint, Beecher, Mount Morris, Vienna, all that.
Oh, wow. Way up there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big area to cover.
Heck yeah.
Huge area to cover. It's wild. Clio and like Vienna Township people all want to come to Genesis.
Why?
Some weird phenomenon. I don't know.
I like Hurley.
I like Hurley.
I don't mind Hurley at all.
No?
And I live 2 minutes from Genesis.
Right?
Yeah.
When people ask, I say Hurley.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not familiar. I've only been to both of them on like the customer side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But so Hurley it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that work at Hurley and like good people. Been to Hurley a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not that I'm saying anything's bad about Genesis, but I would just go to Hurley, get to know people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
you're coming through your fire career. You move into the EMT
Mm-hmm.
side of things.
Yep.
When do you start picking up the urge to start podcasting and moving into that field?
So about, I would say around 2016, I started seeing that kind of need for people to be putting out, to at least be encouraging, because it's when all you hear is how bad it is and how burnt out I am, and I hate people and I hate this and I hate that, and I was like, man, but this is like a prime job. Like, they literally throw us in a truck with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and say, go do your thing.
Right.
Try not to kill anybody or yourselves.
right.
And we'll see you later.
Right. Keep your ratio a little bit higher on the positive side.
Right. And so, just to see people like desperately hating the thing, I was like, man, I gotta promote this.
Sure.
I gotta promote how cool of a job this is so people will want to do it.
Right.
Like, even back then. And, and of course I come from like a faith-based operating system.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
So I was like, well, I could do this. I don't want to hammer people with a lot of God talk, but if I'm doing a podcast, then they could have it in their ears,
Mm-hmm.
and there doesn't have to be a lot of debate. So it just kind of sprung from there.
Sure. Like, it's your message. If they want
Mhm.
to listen, they can.
Yeah.
Just like if
or
you don't-
not. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't want to work here, hit the road.
Right.
Turn it off.
So just started recording in 17.
Nice.
got a handful of episodes, and then I think in 2019 we decided to build the platform because the listener base still wasn't like where I wanted it.
Sure.
So to build the platform, we moved under Freedom Center Church because they had a studio and all the stuff,
Right.
numbers of people listening already, and I was just going to piggyback off that.
Or just talk to the same listeners.
Mm-hmm.
What is the name, or what was the initial inception of your podcast?
The initial inception of like the ministry, if you will, and podcast was called the Lighthouse Experiment.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Is that a metaphor, or how did you come up with that concept?
So the idea of obviously of the lighthouse being like a kind of like the port in the storm,
Sure.
light in the storm, and then experiments because that's what I thought it was. We're just gonna try to see how this goes, or come experiment with another way of doing things.
That's kind of how I interpreted it.
Another perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See how it goes. How did it go?
It went great right up until COVID.
Oh, I think everybody's life was basically doing that.
Like it was rolling. We would do like community nights a couple times a month, and people would come in and it was just like a hangout. We got a pretty big yard, so we'd have like bonfires and volleyball and cookouts, and so people and their families would just be able to come chill out, get a different, kind of that tribe mindset.
Right.
Sure.
Community based, everybody's in the same
Community connection. Right.
And then since it was part of the church, once they were no longer doing events because of COVID, then I had to follow along with that.
Right.
So after that, I decided like no matter what happens, because COVID was ramping up, like in our world, in EMS world, and probably for you guys too, but like now all of a sudden young people are dying. We don't know how to respond to it. It was definitely more combative posture we were taking.
Right.
And
yeah,
then
people were pushing us around a little bit more.
Yeah. And then so I was like, well, then we were going to just record at my co-host's house.
Okay.
And then as soon as I had a couple like hot calls in like COVID hot zone, I was like, I can't come there anymore. I have to isolate from my own family. We got to figure out a different way to do this.
Right.
But the goal was no matter what happens, I'm going to I'm going to talk about, during that season, it was like, I'm going to be out here in the midst of this, like on the literal front lines and reporting from the front lines what's actually happening.
For sure.
So we did that for a while, and then now we're here.
Wow, I bet that was some pretty interesting content that you're just fresh out of your mind bringing back.
It got spicy sometimes.
Oh, I bet. So did you find it easy to like say adapt for like all of a sudden COVID's here, everything has to change, you're isolating from your family. Like was that a pretty easy, not isolating from your family, but to maintain the podcasting on top of isolating from your family? Was it easy? Was it an outlet for you? What made you want to do it?
It was easy because it was my way of kind of journaling what was going on.
Sure.
That's kind of that's my archives of COVID, of what I went through. Maybe I'll turn it into a book someday.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's what I was using it for. I was like, I'm getting this stuff that I have to say off my chest. And at that time, like Ashley, my co-host, would be, I'm looking at numbers and they're kind of dipping. I was like, I don't care right now.
Right.
Like this is literally me venting and talking back to people on social media, because I would do that quite a bit.
Oh, cool. So you'd address the people that are out there.
I'd be like, like sometimes I'd be like, if you don't qualify to have a conversation about something medical with me, I'm not going to have a conversation with you.
About that, or just
about
in general?
That.
Right.
About like, this is not what it is. It's just the flu. I'm like, man, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it was such a weird time. It was funny. I was talking with some friends last night about it, and like to start, it was such a domino effect. Like you heard about it, and then like, all right, some people are getting sick, and like people are getting put on vents, people are dying, they're closing state borders. Like it evolves so fast, and it's weird to like look back at now. But I think something here in like 10 years is just we're gonna look at it and say, what happened? And like how we reacted to it in such a crazy way. And like I remember when it first started, and like, who knows what's going to happen? Like, this could be a zombie apocalypse. Like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And people who aren't seeing it firsthand, like you are, and like we were, they get their news just from on the TV. They're quarantined at home. They only know what they see on Twitter and what they read or what they watch on the TV. And it's kind of like the war in Ukraine. Like, unless you see some first-hand footage or like a soldier over there, you only get fed what they want to feed you.
Right.
And people just
That's
sit on
precisely
that
what
hill and they will defend that hill.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the problem with TV. I mean, I'm not getting on a soapbox, but I don't like TV. It's a programming device. It only gives you what they feed you, just like you said it, and
Mhm.
it's not even. You can't even trust it. Like, you have to research stuff, and you have to think critically
Right.
on your own, and do research. It's
Yeah.
scary.
It is. It's nuts. And it's everybody does it. They accuses each team
Right.
of, everything's super tribal and you got to be one or the other and all this stuff. And that's how that was during COVID. Everybody they were ready to die on that whatever hill.
Yeah. It's weird.
I was just had a conversation with a dude that I hadn't talked to since those early days. I was like, man, think of it in the healthcare space like you would think of, like, back in the day, Pearl Harbor.
Sure.
Like, we've been attacked by this thing. Like, I had docs that had been doctors my whole career tell me, like, I don't know what this is. Like, a week ago, a 30-year-old dude would come in with difficulty breathing, and we'd throw him some, what we call a duoneb.
Mm-hmm.
We'd run some breathing treatments,
Yeah.
some antibiotics, and some IV steroids, and he'd go home. Maybe keep him on a 24-hour hold. He said, but these dudes are coming in, 12 hours later, they're on an event, 12 hours later, they're dead. And it was like,
Holy smokes.
so there's that's that initial time where, like, we don't know what this is.
Right.
And if you look at it now, healthcare figured it out. We first month or two, everybody was going on event, and they was like, that's probably not the right treatment, so we'll
Right.
run
Right.
that back, and then
Adjust course a little bit.
you'll adjust course, yeah. But, like, you can't hold that against people when you're like that, like you said. Because I'll be honest, man, I made fun of it when it was in China.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be the first. There's episodes where I'm calling it Kung Flu.
Yeah, right. And nobody knew.
Nobody knew. Then all of a sudden it's in Oakland County, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Right. It's here.
right.
Crap.
Yeah, we've seen this through like Ebola and stuff, Like,
Right.
it never blew up in the United States, let alone the entire world. And you
Right.
see like, oh yeah, these are the terrifying photos, but that's all you see. And like, how many cases? Who knows? Like, I never had any firsthand experience with that.
Right.
And now it was just a whole other demon that came
Mhm.
in.
It was wild.
Yeah. It just added more stress to everybody's already stressed ass life.
Yeah.
Right.
It didn't help anything.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Made things worse. And so actually, my wife, through the COVID pandemic, she got promoted and got some job changes. Now she works home, full-time, remote, in a dual promoted position.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a fantastic thing that came out of
Yeah.
the changes. There's positives too, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
it was definitely
There's a lot of companies that were like, man, I can downsize my HQ
right.
and not have to spend all this money on leases, and I can have all these executives working out of their house remotely.
Right. And they're going to work happier.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to go to work in comfy pants.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Right.
Not that we get to, but
Mm-mm.
at least I wear them to work anyways. Try and dress comfortable.
I wear more comfy pants now.
Yeah.
At Swartz, we wore slacks.
Oh,
We wore like a Class A uniform, basically.
Ugh.
Class B.
that's no good. I hate Class A's. They are so stuffy
They're
and uncomfortable.
terrible.
The shoes are awful. Ugh.
And
Yeah.
now we're in that 511 gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not bad.
Not bad.
Good transition there.
Heck yeah.
So I guess we'll kind of take a little detour. On this show, we talk about a lot of things like discipline, mindset. You have plenty of experience in the EMS field, in the fire field. You were in the military. And I'm sure you get to work with a bunch of young guys,
Mm-hmm.
young women as well. When you see somebody that you're working one-on-one in the truck with and they have some kind of poor attitude, like, how do you spread the message of saying, like, hey, like, this is really a lottery job, like, this job is awesome for those who love this job, which you seem to be one of those.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain that and, like, kind of spread that message to somebody?
Very directly.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate because I've always had like long-term partners.
Okay.
The dude I'm with now is like, we're super close friends. We do that little house church thing. They come every Monday night. So our families are tight. I've been with this guy for 4 years. So I don't get a lot of experience with people that
Gotcha.
hate the job or
Yeah.
whatever. But when I do, I just let them know. That's one of those things, like, I'm old, gray bearded, everybody knows in Genesee County how long I've been here.
Right.
Sure.
So it's cool to have that kind of, I have that
reputation
behind me where people will listen, and I have that influence. So
that's powerful.
but super
yield.
direct.
Yeah.
There's no punches pulled.
Nice.
Like, suck it up or get out.
Right.
Like, it's, if you hate it, leave.
Right.
It's
I need
the
somebody
only way around it.
that doesn't hate it to be in this truck
Right.
with me right now, because you're gonna make me kill you, or I'm gonna ask you to go home.
Yeah.
I've done that. In my career, there's been people with horrible attitudes that I've just taken back to headquarters and thrown off the truck.
Really?
Like, full send. I'm like, really? All right. We'll finish this call. I'll clear Hurley, go back to headquarters.
How's admin deal with that?
They got to the point where they go, oh, okay,
Yeah, if it's coming from you, it's something valid. Yeah.
it's valid.
Yeah,
Nice.
if it's happening every day because you just don't
Right.
like people, it's a
Right.
different story.
Yeah.
That's just, yeah. And for the most part, everybody gets, if they're going to try it, I'm going to give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
you
it gets,
don't know, you don't know.
right. And you got to train people up. Like, I'm constantly trying to, whoever is coming up behind me so I can peace out.
Yeah.
That's my mission.
Yeah. Leave the place better than you found it.
Right.
That's it, man.
Yeah, train your rookie, train your replacement ASAP.
Yep.
Keep them coming.
And that's this dude. His name's Dan. He's going to be my replacement. And I have several people in the county that were like interns, did their medic internship with me.
Okay.
So
Nice.
my skill set is out there. But like, yeah, I've always been that way. Like, as soon as I can like financially be like, deuces.
Sure.
I want people that, I don't want to leave it and it's in like freaking shambles.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't just leave when it's falling apart. You got to make sure it's stable. I mean, we were talking earlier, the ability to be the model, like let's just say you're the model of what we want to see in our EMTs. Now you're training them. So now we have the model who's got all these principles and skill sets and habits. Now you're giving them to the new recruit. So you're training one or two individuals. Now you're doubling yourself.
Right.
So you've effectively replaced yourself and gave them an extra. I mean, there's no better system than that.
Right.
And if the training goes well, they influence people similarly, and they influence 2 people. So now you go from 2 to 4 to 8, 16, and so on. So
Right. That's that whole force multiplier mindset.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we were talking. You became the experiment, right? We made it through COVID, and now we're on the other side of COVID.
Right.
So where do we go after COVID?
Well, so we were just kind of sticking it out. And then at the end of last year, I had started reaching out like to different organizations doing the same thing. One of them being the Overwatch Collective. We talked before we went online here.
Yeah.
Those dudes are raising money and sending first responders out for therapy. They're being active.
Sure.
Right.
So what are you guys doing? What are you doing? I don't mean to interrupt you.
So what we're doing is I decided about like the second week of December that the experiment was over.
Okay.
And now is time to operate. We got to actually do the thing. We're out from the church's platform. So we kind of we're under their nonprofit.
Right.
It's hard to raise money for your own thing because it's got to go through a bunch of steps.
Okay.
Which makes sense. It's like
Right.
no beef with that. But it's to the point where we need to start growing our own thing so I can respond to people's needs in real time.
Sure.
So I just told our people that hang out with us, kind of our crew, that this is what we're doing. We're going to be able to, like, part of what we want to do is give people the opportunity to see the service side of this with no strings.
Okay.
Like, you can go out and there's a program in Detroit where it's called Detroit Street Care.
Okay.
And they go around and all they're doing, it's so low level that you don't have to report it to a med control.
Nice.
They're just checking in on homeless people. They're going to shelters and providing very basic, minor, like foot care maybe.
Yeah, life-supporting
Yeah,
activities. Do you
just-
need some water?
Right. Just that stuff. And we want to
Nice.
get people involved in that, bring back the community piece.
Okay.
Just kind of speak into that. And all that will come from like a kind of a leadership training mindset.
Yeah.
Get Desi involved.
Yeah.
And I think that you can rebuild the program, like the EMS community in particular, because I think the EMS, especially private, lags the most when it comes to discipline and mindset. So that's kind of the op now, is to change, kind of hack the mindset, get people wanting to be a professional at what they do, getting a different perspective. And then with that, then they start being treated and paid as professionals.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about changing the individual and then hopefully changing the compensation scale.
Right.
That'd be
just
awesome.
Changing the culture of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the legacy I want to leave,
Yeah.
While also building a job for myself to do once I'm.
Yeah. I mean, you're transitioning, and I don't even know, you're probably going to be in the EMT field for a few more years. Probably.
Well, if I have it my way, I have a couple more years on this license cycle.
Right.
If it goes perfectly, I can I'll probably redo my license, but then I can fade off and maybe pick up a shift on the bus every once in a while, but just not full time.
They say your exit strategy is almost more important than how you're going to do everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least you're thinking about how to escape this or just transition smoothly.
Right.
That'll leave you with some options. Sounds like we're on the same path though, because we're trying to influence from the inside out. Like you can only change you, and then hopefully you can change the people around you.
We want to kind of want to hit hard on the mental health, but mental fitness. I like that terminology way better.
Yeah.
I think you can do that for yourself on the front side and through fitness, physical fitness and all that stuff. But you can prepare. I mean, I think probably all of us have read up or heard that you can switch your mindset and, change those neuroreceptors. And now you're thinking of things differently.
Absolutely. It's very flexible. Well, maybe it's not initially.
Not initially, but
it can be with the right, I hate to say it, but the right grooming, the right people, the right conversations, the right ability to maybe want to do a little better.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can hack, because we talked about before, and I've really hitting this hard lately in the socials and stuff, but the idea, if you look at the military in particular, military, suicide awareness became a thing, and the awareness pushed so hard that it became a promotion. It was after all that the numbers started climbing the way they do.
Sure.
It's awesome that you went on Instagram and you did 22 push-ups.
Right.
But if you just, all it is awareness, then in my opinion, if it's only awareness, that's nothing that's just as good as thoughts and prayers are.
Yeah.
That's the first step, right? Let's just say it's the first step of 5 or 6.
Right. But if it's all we're talking about, we're at such a level of a minimal staffing critical level now.
Yeah.
Are we going to freaking put ourselves in, we're going to extinct our industry because no one wants to do it?
Right.
Because all we're selling is the bad story. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to be a cop?
Right.
Ugh.
Why would you want to get in the EMS service when all you hear is how bad it is and everybody kills themselves and everyone's burned out?
Yeah.
And everything's horrible when it's not.
It doesn't have to be.
No.
And I think it's gotten there, but I think it doesn't have to stay there. And there's ways, like you're talking, there's mechanisms to hack and reframe and really change the way we're perceiving all of it.
Right.
That's important, I think.
Yeah, I think we don't see a lot of people going in these fields for exactly what you said. It's such a kind of a nightmare job. When you go to school and go and become a coder and make $150,000, And particular, the only people I really see coming in this field are military or legacy. My dad or my mom was in the fire, EMS, or police. And so I picked fire, EMS, police,
Right.
But not a lot of people just choose it because of that. I mean, it's just the nightmare stories about how it's the pay, the hours, the sleep, the trauma. And so some people say it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm. It's not for everybody.
That's true.
Anybody can do it, but not everybody.
Yeah, right. And it's a hard, with the current climate with social media, it's super hard to recruit anybody.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How do you even set up a recruiting video for our job?
Just get those dudes off Chicago Fire.
Yeah. Yep. That would do it.
Right.
Probably it.
Half those calls they go on, man.
Oh,
I'm going home. Told somebody that the other day. If I have to respond to somebody and they're in a car that's hanging off a parking structure third floor up and it's going to fall on a bus that's full of sick kids, I'm out of service.
Yeah, that's a wrap for me.
I,
Go sit in the hot tub and think this one through.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit more than I signed up for.
Mhm.
That's I mean, that TV show, I don't know if it does us any favors, but
I don't think any of those shows do us any favors
I don't
across
think
the
so.
board.
yeah, probably not.
They're popular though. Everybody goes,
Oh,
"Oh
loves
yeah,
it.
oh you're a fireman. I watch Chicago Fire." I'm like, "Oh, cool." I don't really watch it, but I'm sure it's a great
Man.
depiction of what we do.
I know that I've had people say things to me like on calls, like in their house, like in the South County in particular, but they'll yell things like they've heard on ER or shows like that. Chicago Med. Are you going to do a thoracotomy tray? I'm like, out of my scope.
Yeah, we don't have any of those in the truck. Sorry.
We used our last one on the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the operation up, right? So
Mhm.
now what is? Do you guys have a big vision for this operation?
Step one is kind of, we rebranded the podcast to grow the podcast by stuff like this, networking
Yeah.
with other podcasters and stuff like this. And then for this year, the operation is to get nonprofit status.
What does that do for you? I am very unfamiliar with a nonprofit and what the status would.
For it,
Do-
what it does is it changes. I can set it up so I'm being paid as my career through it, all kinds of stuff. But it's easier to fundraise because with this community and like the veteran and first responder community, there's people out there with tons of treasure and they want to give it to us to do stuff like this.
Resources.
Just resources are just abundant and out
Nice.
there to build up these kinds of stories and stuff.
Okay.
The way we were set up before, same, but there's people that don't want to funnel that through something else, and
Okay.
they want to hand over cash directly and help in that manner. And so it makes it easier. It's, I grew up in the church and all that stuff, but
Okay.
for some people, they don't want it. Like I've had multiple people tell me that they don't want to listen if they have to go through all the steps to get around like the church and all
Sure.
that to do so.
Okay.
So kind of that is, it's casting a bigger net.
Right.
It's just, it allows for me to move a little bit more freely.
Nice.
It doesn't change who I am. It just gives me better control of the operation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very interesting. So I don't, again, like I said, I don't know anything about a nonprofit, but you said that other group you mentioned is also a nonprofit.
Yes, the Overwatch Collective. Yeah.
Did they inspire you to kind of proceed down this route?
Yeah, actually talking to their president, his name's Greg. We got done with our episode and he's like, "Man, you need to do, these are the steps you need to take and it'll help."
Yeah.
You can bring in money to build a studio,
Sure.
make the podcast better, then it grows, then you guys grow and the whole thing.
Wow, that's an
Works.
amazing concept. I didn't know it worked like that.
So I got a follow-up question to that.
Mhm.
So you're working on this nonprofit, say you get that all situated. Some hedge fund manager in New York hands you $1 million. What are you going to do with it? What's your big plan to, like you said, the Overwatch Collection is doing retreats for EMS, first responders, PTSD. What is your plan?
With that kind of money, I hadn't thought about that kind of money.
Yeah.
Man, just to give like the EMS community is really where I'm hyper focused because that's where I am.
Yeah.
But the first responder community and veteran community, just every opportunity to be successful and to flourish.
Yeah.
And that, like, also, if I'm honest, be another one of those stories that you can look to. Like, look at this group of people. They were in this industry and now they're successful here.
Right.
Because we don't tell that story.
No.
Like on one of the last episodes I talked about Black Rifle Coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I had just listened to their CEO, Evan's episode, their show where he was like, did all this stuff in the special operators community, got out of the military with all of the stuff that goes with that,
Mhm.
but in 9 years' time went from roasting coffee in his garage to a publicly traded company.
Yeah. Huge company.
Huge, that hires all all military guys,
Yeah.
all veterans. Not all, but he said like 50%.
50%, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
huge.
I got a subscription there. Awesome coffee.
You know it. But like, But that's the kind of thing. Like if I can build this thing so it grows and so we have like teaching tools and can build the community and leave a legacy like that and bring people when they come out. Because another thing we don't do in first responder world is there's not a first responder veteran community.
Right. Once you retire, you're the retired guy and you pay your union dues and it's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might get invited to some retiree parties.
Maybe.
I've learned a lot about the guys that used to work with us by having to look up their names for their final like stuff because they're past.
Yeah, I've never even thought about that. It seems like whenever somebody just leaves the fire department, you have the retirement party and they kind of like fade away.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's even worse in like especially private EMS.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's probably like you've got the union for the fire and stuff. You guys don't have much of that at all.
No,
so the
we
communities
don't. Not in our company. We don't have a union. But like, so when people are gone, they're gone.
Right. They just leave.
Unless you make an effort to keep them in the fold.
Sure. Or if they try to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you're attaching yourself to those people leaving and the people coming in, and you're making an effort to stay within the community too.
Right. So yeah, that's the 35,000 foot view.
Sure. Love that. What's the big task you got for this month? Even though it's almost over, but maybe next month.
We're still just kind of growing the rebrand, trying to figure out ways to get out.
Nice.
I've had some young colleagues tell me my face needs to be on TikTok, and I'm like, man, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And
I
was like, I told her, if they've said, and the quote was, "Oh man, you got your gas with your debit card today, didn't you?" I was like, "Yep." You buy everything on that thing, or with Apple Pay. I'm like, "Yep." She's like, "Everybody who wants your information has your information. Shut up. Get on TikTok." I was like,
crap.
Dang.
Can't die on that hill. Not when you got that kind of evidence. We tried to get on TikTok. It's a whole new world, dude.
Yeah, it's
I really don't like it, but
it's Chinese.
Everybody that talks about it says if they're for it, they're for it, right? They're gonna die on that hill. If they're against it, they're against it. And we just started really pushing out like our social media on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. And I was talking to him. I got a buddy. He does like the Twitch online stuff, and he's like, "Gotta get on there. You gotta get on there. Gotta get on there." So toss like one video out there, throw out some hashtags, and like no previous experience blew the views out of the water from our Instagram in just like 2 days. It's just like somehow with their algorithm for the new creators, it does a really good job getting out there.
that's Twitch.
No, that TikTok.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Well, I've seen that with the views on just a handful of things I put up.
Yeah.
People seem to like the little sound bites you can add.
Yeah,
off Buzzsprout.
I know. I saw you guys did that. We put one up, and it got a bunch of likes and stuff. I was like,
Mhm.
that worked. That was pretty fancy.
Yeah.
Buzzsprout's helpful too. I think we just upgraded to the paid subscription where they're not going to delete my stuff after 90 days.
Right. That's what we did instantly because I had stuff. I wanted to put old content up.
Oh, nice.
So I started directly with it, like 12 hours a month or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what we're up to. So how many episodes do you guys produce a month or a week? What's
Just
your
one.
workload?
We do one episode a week and it goes up on
Okay.
like Tuesdays or Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll do the show. And then she edits it barely.
Right.
Now, even less. And then she has it ready to, it'll be uploaded on Buzzsprout and then ready to publish. She just sets a time.
Just, schedule it.
Yeah, so it goes out at like between 8 and 9 on Thursdays.
Nice.
Nice. Did you guys do any research on what day to release it on, or?
Just during the week.
Yeah, we put it on Mondays. We don't really, whatever.
The only thing I've heard with that is like weekends are
boom.
Weekends and Wednesdays are no man's land apparently.
Wednesdays. I wonder what about Wednesday?
I don't know.
Middle of the week, everybody's humping. Something
Sounds right.
That makes more sense.
Sounds right.
So yeah, the Buzzsprout's working pretty good. What did you guys do to how did you guys come up with your logo? Like who does that? How do I know you said it's
the ones we have
concept.
now, my
Yeah.
wife.
Oh, she does the graphic work on those?
Uh-huh.
That's awesome. It's so good.
She made the original, and then I was like, we were getting ready to do an episode. We made the decision, separated from the church. I was like, and this was all like the 26th of December, and I was like, we have to go live on January 1. We have to be Operation Lighthouse.
Totally perfect.
We have to change it. And she's okay. I was like, so I need a logo.
I remember you posting like, which one of these is the best, and I was like, I like the one I liked. I don't remember which one it was, but I think it ended up winning.
Yep. And then, so she just all right. Spent about 45 minutes.
Yeah, so she's pretty inclined to the graphic stuff.
Yeah.
Ben's pretty good at that stuff too. He crushes
here
it.
and there, younger, grew up with it. But I have a question for you. So getting into the podcast field, it seems like you have a pretty like a decent sized operation, but still small. So there's probably a lot of stuff that you got to do. What are some skills that you found have like helped you out, like going into the logo stuff? If you didn't have somebody to go to, like, are you sitting here looking at algorithms on TikTok that you never thought you'd see yourself doing, or
not when
Not
it was
yet.
a Lighthouse experiment? But now, yeah, I'm looking because I got with Buzzsprout. I'm fascinated by the breakdown of how many people listen on an iPhone and how many people listen on a computer and how many hits we got on, Spotify compared to iHeart compared to Apple.
Yeah.
So now I'm really tuned in. Before, like, this is wild. I don't listen to any of the episodes.
That is wild.
I don't ever. They're up. I'll do the soundbite and that's it. I've never listened to it. There's one way back in the day when we were first starting that I went back and listened to because whatever the faux pas was came in like the first 45 seconds.
Okay.
So a dude was super mad because what I had said was that opiates were an epidemic until white people started overdosing. But there was like more context to it.
Right.
But that in particular, what he was mad at.
Got ya.
And he said, "You said this." I was like,
Let me touch back and see what I said.
Yeah, I did too. Let me circle back. I'll see what I said, and then I'll call you up.
Yeah.
And I sure shit. And I'm like, oh, well. So I called the dude, and I was like, "Yeah, you're right, but let me explain
Yeah.
the full context of the conversation."
So did he stop listening after you said that? Or?
No.
Okay.
No.
That just triggered him, and then
He's listened to every episode
since.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's not a bad person to have
No.
following you.
Yeah, sounds like you had a good conversation with him afterwards then.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
I'll own it. If I'm wrong and someone calls me, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll listen to that segment. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. We sat here and like we'll throw out some things, and I think we had a disagreement one time.
Yeah.
And I remember going over it after I watched the video. I'm like, I'm gonna Google this real quick. I'm like, sure as shit, Chris was right. I'm like,
Oh,
it is what it is,
Yeah, that's kind of how, if you can't have a conversation with somebody and be
Right.
like, I was wrong, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I still appreciate everything you do for me. We're friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try and do better next time. I mean, what else can you do? I mean, just own it.
Yeah.
Right? If you're wrong, you're wrong. No big deal. Not trying to, condemn anybody for trying to do something and then not doing it well.
Yeah.
I was just watching that kind of thing kind of happened in real time yesterday.
Oh, no.
I was following a dude's. So there's a guy that was on a podcast I listened to, and he SEAL Team 6 operator, and told his whole come to faith story, and got a lot of. It was on the Sean Ryan show, so he got a lot of hits.
Solid show.
Such a good show.
So you remember there was that Eddie Penny guy.
Yes, dude, that was such a good episode.
Right, but he went super hard in the paint yesterday on his Instagram in regards to like the what I like to call the alphabet mafia, the LBGTQ.
Yeah.
It's like it's how homosexuality is just wrong. It is. That's it.
Oh,
and then
hardline,
man. And I was like, ooh, no, like you
Yeah,
just
is this
got
a sword you
all
wanna die on,
this
man?
good feedback, dude, off of that episode, and you're using that for this. And then he posted like a video. It's like, can you really not have a disagreement without people coming at you? And I was like, man, I typically am just Michael Jackson eating popcorn in the comments and don't ever get involved.
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, not on that hill.
Dude.
There's a way to say what you just said, and that ain't it.
Right. There's a lot to be said for being self-aware, and I get, finding, standing up for what you believe in, and I get, but I don't know, man. There's a lot of bullet shots that I don't want shooting at me, and I'm not going to provoke it. I know what I feel, and I know what I say out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't feel like I'm living incongruently, but I'm not going to rush to social media to say something inflammatory.
No, that was like throwing kerosene on a car fire right
Sure.
there. That was like, man, dude, you had your whole organization blow up And now it could, because the way
canceled.
socials work, it could just implode right back on.
Cancellation, baby.
Yeah.
There's a cancel button out there on everybody's head, and they're just waiting to press it. And You
Yeah.
just got to say the wrong thing
Mm-hmm.
or the right thing, I suppose. It's crazy.
It is crazy. That's like one danger.
Yeah.
I'll say all the time, social media. Well, you ask what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah,
I'm like,
man.
They're going to invent social media, and it's going to be the greatest curse/gift of all time.
Yeah, gosh. I
Like,
can't
good
imagine.
luck.
I think on the podcast we talked about, I'm curious to see a study in about 20 years how social media affects people, like kids growing up, sitting there on an iPad, just eating, staring at the iPad, like zoned out zombies. And I want to see how it, like back in the day we thought cigarettes were cool.
Mhm.
And then like 20 years go by and now cigarettes are the worst,
Right?
Mhm.
and like now that's kind of fading away. I wonder how social media is going to hold in like 20, 30 years, or we're just going to keep
Man,
on evolving.
I think it's just, I'm scared if the AI of it all is just going to keep.
It's going to
That's
be
weird, man. The AI.
Like,
Yeah, it's interesting.
Dude, when you saw Zuckerberg sitting in front of Congress, literally saying, I don't know anymore, it's too big, I can't control it. I was like, oh.
Right. What did he just do?
I was like, oh no, Skynet.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, we're done.
The AI stuff is crazy. Super crazy. But I really think it comes down to relationships, right? Just like your vices, just like things that we do that aren't healthy for us. How do you use it? What are you using it? What's your intensity? What's your purpose? If you're having good things come from social media, like you're broadcasting a very positive message, you're using
Mhm.
it to build community, that's not the same as
Right,
like flipping and eating pop and
right.
sitting there for 3 hours, right? Or you just got done going to the bathroom and you sat and flipped on the screen for another 17 minutes and you stopped going to the bathroom like 16 and a half minutes ago.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I'm guilty of it sometimes. I try not to. I like the little stat at the end of the week I'll get. It's like you spend so many hours on your phone. It's down 13% or it's up like 15%. All right, we'll keep an eye on this.
The screen time thing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
It's a good little
smacks you in the end
reminder.
of the week every once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
It's, yeah. I turned it off. Well, because I was like putting content out and trying to build the thing, and then I was like, dude, this is inaccurate.
Right,
Right.
because you're
I'm doing
creating.
work.
Exactly. Exactly.
Is how I like to justify it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, there's how do you see work? Like, if you were to say what is good work, what would you define good work as?
I don't know. Just like in regards to like the show and stuff like that, or
Just
in
like
gen-
maybe your personal philosophy on like what would you define good work as? Like meaningful work, purposeful
yeah,
type
just
stuff.
anything that has like solid outcome behind it. If it's just wheels spinning, you look busy, but
Sure.
there's nothing produced from it.
Yeah,
It's like a clear vision almost of what you're
Right.
trying to accomplish.
productivity,
Mm-hmm.
action plus more action and results and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of how I look at it too. Like you got to service, right? We're in a service. We're providing a service on mostly all ends of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're a husband, you're a father, you're a firefighter, you're EMT,
Mm-hmm.
you're a podcaster. You're trying to serve a higher purpose, and I think knowing what that is, knowing your big vision, like you mentioned, is super super important. That way you have like target.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a target, you're just throwing darts at the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever wins at darts at the wall.
Right. Absolutely. That's good stuff.
We're getting deep here today. So I think one of the main things we talked about, and we wrote it on our little noteboard, but responder funk. I think
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of like what we're all trying to combat here is
Right.
that not necessarily burnout. It's not quite burnout, but for some people it is. Maybe it's not PTS, but it's sub PTS, but for some people it's blown up super bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's to say if we were going to move forward in the same directions, like how do we combat what I would say is responder funk? Just that lack of motivation, lack of initiative, but they keep showing up. They're your neutral guys. They don't
Mhm.
hate the job, but they ain't trying to make it any better.
Right.
Like the dead weight.
Right.
How do we combat that?
I think you threw out there burnout. Like, is burnout the people that just like hate the job? I don't think so. I think you can get burnt out, man. Like, there's weeks where you'll go and like we're a busier department with like 16,000 runs
Sure.
and like probably 20% of those are like fire related. So a lot of medicals, up all night, day after day, understaffed, we're doing overtime. After a while, you're just like, I'm just going to work, and like you gotta like pull yourself out, look at your life, and say like, all right, let's go focus on the gym again, like give a purpose behind that, and like start opening up these goals versus just surviving at work. And I feel like a lot of people get in that funk and never are able to realize it or pull themselves out of it. It's just their new life,
Right.
and then it's just the day after day, over and over. Do I hit my 4-day? All right, on my 4-day, let's recover, and like this. I want to have a pizza tonight. I'm too tired to cook, or I think a lot of people catch that funk, man.
Yep, I agree. I think a lot of times too, from my perspective on burnout, is that it's not like you said. It's not necessarily they hate what they're doing.
Sure.
I think a lot of times we forget why we started.
Mm-hmm.
What drove you? Like, go back and look. Why did you decide the fire service?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to be a cop? Why did you get into EMS? I think I've had plenty of seasons, plenty of times in my career where I've had to be like, I'll have a day where I hate this damn job.
Sure.
I hate this. And then I'll go back and kind of recalibrate my thinking,
That's a good term.
and just, that's always been beneficial to me. But I agree that because that's what our shifts are. I work Wednesday through Saturday.
Okay.
So if I had nothing else going and I just worked Wednesday through Saturday and then sat around Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then went back, you get in that funk.
Yeah, that becomes your new rhythm, right?
Very easily. But, what's been beneficial doing Operation Lighthouse and the podcast and all that stuff is I'm ripping calls. In between calls, I'm having conversations, and then I'm planning out content, and then I'm scheduling what's going to be posted. And then, next thing you know, it's Saturday. I'm off for 3 days, and it's like repeat.
Yeah.
We do like the house church campus, so that's Monday. I'm setting up that on Monday. So Monday comes and goes. And then Tuesday, I'm doing a podcast here or recording the one tonight.
Nice.
And it's just constantly being filled, but it's all purposeful so that I'm also present when my family's home and they're around. I'm not,
So almost like the positive engagement outside of work.
Right.
And like having that goal outside of work's no longer like the biggest factor in your life. And I think that's probably a big part of what burnout is that's what people look forward to. Oh, I got to get up early, go to work, like hit it hard for 24 hours, and I'm going to be off. You have something that you're engaged with. Say it's even like right now, it's soon to be hopefully a career for you when you're all done retired, but even call it a hobby for right now. Like, that's kind of like what I look at this.
Sure.
It gives me plenty we talk about sleep. We go and do some research on sleep, pull up some cool facts, learn about it. How can I get better? How can we talk about it?
Yeah.
And it gives you something to keep on going. I guess you don't have time to focus on like the bad parts of your day, like you're expected to be at work and I don't know, I guess you take it with a grain of salt. It's a little bit easier.
It's magnetized, right? Like, so your focus and your attention is pulled towards setting up for Monday, doing podcasts on Tuesday, doing whatever's next. Like, you have that vision, like your purpose is, and all of these habits and actions we have are basically aligned with that outcome that you hope to achieve. So you have a worthwhile goal, right? You've identified a goal. Now you have purpose, right? So granted, being in the service and of the service is super important, and going to work and being refreshed. But in order to have that fire inside, you need a little bit more to focus on. Like, you're not identified as Jim the EMT. Granted, some people know you that way, but that's not how you feel yourself.
Right.
You've got passions outside of this that allow you to serve as an EMT who's, let's say, well rested because you have joy and passion at home.
Right. And that's the key. Like having some way, because that's like, I feel that like as a responsibility, right? Because I've been doing it a long time. So I have people coming to me that are younger, and they come to me because like I have depth and weight to the industry and the conversation because I've done the thing. So they don't necessarily have to come to me, with all the bang bang. I already know.
Yeah.
I already know what this is that they're talking about. So in order to be capable to have that to give, there's a lot of
other side.
Yeah. A lot of keeping myself healthy, like mentally fit.
Sure.
And all those other things, not falling down that, like nothing wrong with a bourbon, but a bottle of bourbon.
Right.
I'm talking to dudes that like go through like several bottles of Jack Daniels a week. I'm like, dang, dude. And like, wow. And you're always upset and you're always angry and you're always broke and you always hate your job. And it's like, dude.
You got to take stock in reality.
Yeah.
And pay attention to where you're at, your resources are going. Are you spending time and money, or you know, on those type of things? Like, are your habits sucking all of it out of you?
Mm-hmm. And that's life-sucking habits right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are spending, not even spending, but like we have resources like time, energy, money, thoughts, and people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all are granted some of those every day. And if most of your money goes towards the booze and most of your thoughts go negative and most of your energy is low because you're sitting on the couch, like you're spending all of your day,
right,
your resources investing in the wrong direction. And, you know, momentum goes where it goes. And if you're going to just keep going that way, that's just how it's going to go, right?
Right. So then I think that adds to the responder funk. So
yeah,
if that's how your time and energy is spent, you're already kind of in a dark place.
Sure.
So now you're in the bottle and you're watching your news off YouTube.
Right.
And now you see, you know, Atlanta happening and they're burning cop cars and everyone's mad at the police and you can't have a blue line flag in Los Angeles.
Right.
And, you know, and like EMS is terrible and we don't get paid enough and the whole Monday Night Football thing and then everyone's posting all that negativity and it just spirals out of control. And then
everybody thinks that it's the worst job in the world and nobody wants to do it because we're underpaid and we're
don't get paid enough, blah, blah, too many hours. Yeah.
Man, on that in particular, I had so many people pissed when I was like, come on.
On the football deal?
Yeah. We do this every day. I was like, man, I have literally, it's been like 3 weeks since I did any kind of CPR.
It doesn't happen as much as...
It's not every day.
Right.
It might happen every day, like worldwide.
Yeah,
right.
People die every day.
But I'm, but I'm not doing CPR every day and then going right out on another call. And, I mean, sure, there is days where there's a bunch of stuff happens.
Yeah, population-driven numbers and stuff. Like technically, it happens.
But
I mean, Jim's not doing all the CPRs in Flint this week.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I would take days off.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that would lead to burnout.
That absolutely would. So speaking of burnout, what is one thing that you might tell day one Jim? I know we talked about the social media stuff, but what day one Jim coming into the first responder community? What would you give yourself today?
Oh, same thing I tell all the day one new guys now is don't fall in the trap of getting so fixated and so excited that you're working 100 hours a week.
Sure.
Because we need staffing, so they don't really limit. Like when I first started, man, we were on 24-hour shifts. So I'd run 3 of those, so 72 hours, and then I would pick up shifts in between those shifts.
Wow.
So there was checks, you know, where I would have hundreds of hours and was just so stoked on it. And so it starts off and it's cool and you want to be at all the calls.
Right.
It's like these young dudes that hang out at the firehouse in Grand Blanc waiting.
Yeah.
Just waiting, just looking at the truck.
Yeah.
Drooling.
Wonder what's going on out there.
Yeah, drooling over the radio.
Dude, take your bunker pants off.
Right? Like somebody burned something. Yeah. But it's like that. So that's what I would tell myself. I'm like, don't try to work all the hours.
Yeah.
Be in the kind of the cadence that I am now. Just learn how to spend, how to save, do all those things outside of the job so you don't feel compelled to work all of the overtime.
Have your hands tied.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm younger. I love overtime, but granted, trying to buy a house. There's a lot of people that I think their life has been adjusted to the overtime.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they don't look at what they're making as like their salary. But with overtime, I'm going to clear 100. Like, well, hopefully overtime's going to be around forever. You know what I mean?
Or hopefully you can keep up with needing 100.
Yeah, or you don't get hurt.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good little tidbit there. Like, understand what you make because you can work as much as you want in this field.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least for my department, it sounds like you're the same way.
Yeah.
And that will lead to burnout, but then it also leads to like problems at home. Like if you get hurt and you're off, you get 70% of your salary and you're not getting all that righteous bucks.
Sure. If you're going to work all the time, something else is not getting taken care of all of the time also.
Yeah.
Right.
Like balance is super important when it comes to the roles that you play, and you've got all the roles. You're an EMT, you were a fireman, you're a podcaster, I don't know if you're a father, but you're a husband, so you're a dad. So you've got all these things that demand so much of you, and you only have so much in one day.
Right.
And if you're not, again, taking care of yourself at the base level, sleep, right? Meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep, like you're missing a lot of key things, but you're still going to keep going to work because you have to.
Right.
And that's I think where we start to see, not necessarily people hating their job, but that burnout manifests. And then they take a high critical call. Now we're on levels of PTS type stuff because the exposure was there and you weren't prepared to handle it and all of that stuff.
So you already burned the candle at both ends, and you just
you weren't really trying to. You're just working all the hours.
Right.
You're not focused. You're not. Maybe you're not eating all the Doritos and all the pop, but you're just overworking. Like balance is key.
Right. And early, like younger, you can do that, but it's just to learn when the time is to kind of start to maybe level off a little bit. Maybe not. That's how I ran it.
That makes sense.
I was running so many hours and making good money, and then pay increases. Then you get to this point where I tried working 100 hours, but got taxed on most of it. So then kind of forced to, okay, I got to figure out where I can be and actually benefit from an extra shift.
Right.
Because if you make too much, you're going to lose most of it, and you still had to pay all those man hours.
Right.
Like, that doesn't feel very good.
Goes from time and a half to now you're just working straight time. Yeah, it's a point of diminishing return. It works so much.
Right.
That would be tough.
Yeah, and it's important too. I think a combatant is to learn things outside of your skill set. Like what you just said. Like learn outside of your job life how to use your money to work for you. How with fitness and all of the things. So if all I knew was how to be a paramedic, and that's the only thing, is all of these jobs are like more of lifestyle jobs than they are just go to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if that's all I know, if that's all I can do, then it also leads to what if you get hurt?
Yeah. How have you invested? Like, what's your backup plan?
You got to have a plan B.
Yeah, and you made a perfect example with learning the skills outside of your skill set. So, like as a firefighter, we have a skill set to do the job, right? That we're trained there, but I would say there's a handful of skill sets outside of that lend to doing that job better. Like, so we're required to be excellent every day, all the time, save the world. But how good are you at going to bed? Like, how good are you actually good at sleeping? Like, do you know how to sleep? Right? Do you know what that entails? Do you know anything about eating well? Right? What do you know about fitness? And these are just the things that I would say. They're just 4 real easy things to learn about.
Right.
That are going to make your job better, but they're also going to invest on the baseline, your human aspect. So it's like it serves 2 purposes: studying the demands of your job and finding the skills that can offset those. And it's important to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having some kind of knowledge to keep your brain right, keep your body right, and you're only as good as you're only giving to this job as well as like you're functioning. If you're not getting your sleep and you're groggy, you're not going to be making good decisions. If you can't go into a house because some kind of limiting factor,
you're overweight or under strength,
right?
Then there's things to work on, things to pay attention to, self-awareness.
Yeah.
Well, it's and I've said this before, man, and I'll say it again. Like if we're responding for a health emergency, and I'm coming in with a partner that appears to be, or I am unhealthy looking. Like, how confident are you going to be?
Yeah.
Like, if that's your wife, man, and we're coming here and I'm disheveled.
Right.
And like winded.
Because you carried the box in.
Right.
And you pushed the cart through some snow.
Like, that's just, speaking of fitness, I drive that home all the time with these guys. Is like, do like, see what kind of load you can carry.
Right. Yeah. Put some heavy stuff in your hands.
Right.
Walk.
And like, I did that dang mountain tough thing with the kettle, like the dumbbells and
I don't know what that is.
Oh my God, man. They have this load test thing where you go and you get, I can't remember how we figured out the weight, but I had a rucksack on that was like 70 pounds. Jeez. And I was just carrying a 30-pound dumbbell in each hand.
Okay.
So you go and you're carrying this stuff and it's like a mile walk how they start it. So you're walking with the dumbbells. And then when you have to put them down, still rucksack on, you drop the dumbbells, lose your grip strength or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's 20 walking lunges out, 20 back,
Pick 'em
pick
up.
up the things and go.
Ugh.
And so it's all of that's the
And so the
that's
idea,
a mile.
right?
Wow.
And the idea is like, and there's some other, I can't remember if it was like kettle swings or something as a buy-in,
Okay.
something terrible.
Right.
But the idea for that is like the point
it's a gut check.
is a gut check because it's mostly mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now you know how this area is.
Yeah.
So if I got a dude that he fell out of the blind, I can't drive that mod down the single track. So
Nope.
now I got to put that trauma bag on,
Mm-hmm.
probably take a monitor, the oxygen, and we have to walk to him.
Mm-hmm. And it's
And
not
if
going
I
to be flat and paved.
Right.
Yeah.
If I get to him and now I can't provide the service because I am too weak, too winded,
Yeah. What
then
good are
I've
you?
failed the community.
Yeah. So let me recap this gut check
Mhm.
because in my previous training experience, I've always wanted to develop a gut check. So if I'm understanding you correctly, we're going to take some kind of frame carriage, so
Mhm.
a heavy backpack, a rucksack,
Yep.
a weighted vest, preferably 35 to 50 pounds,
Mhm.
maybe even more,
Maybe more.
right?
Yep.
So 75 pounds maybe. And we're going to hold something in our hands anywhere from 20 to 50 pound
Right.
dumbbells, probably closer to 30 or 35,
Mm-hmm.
and walk a mile
Mm-hmm.
or, a X amount of distance.
Right.
And every time that you have to set those down, there's
Mhm.
a punishment.
Yes.
And it's going to be 20 lunges out and 20 lunges back. And it can be 10 to start, right? We
Right.
could maybe make it 10 or
Make it 5.
modify,
Yeah,
right?
do
Modify
whatever.
it,
Right.
but follow the rules and see if you can get a mile in. So anybody out there listening and you're interested in doing a little gut check, 1 mile, we're going to say 75 pounds,
Mhm.
backpack, farmer carry, heavy dumbbells, probably 30 or 35. And if you have to set them down, lunge out, lunge back, and keep going until you get a mile.
Mhm.
And tell us how long it takes you to do
Yeah.
it.
I believe now I'm thinking about it, the way they did is it's like a specific load. So if the load is 100 pounds, then you take the ruck and the dumbbells to equal 100 pounds.
Okay, so as long as you're having
Uh-huh.
amongst the 3 points,
Mm-hmm.
2 dumbbells and a backpack,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
100 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And was that like a based on like a body weight percentage?
I believe so.
Okay. And how'd you find this?
Just in an Instagram wormhole.
Yeah. And you said,
I
I'm
saw, I
in.
saw a dude carrying this stuff, and I saw a dude bend over and vomit. I was like, oh, this
gosh.
looks good.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so,
Right.
like,
You got my attention.
Heck yeah.
So, and then I watched like a sub video of that, and there was a dude he probably is 155 to 170 pound guy,
Yeah.
but he carried 250 pounds and completed it.
What? All right.
And you'll see these dudes just picking up speed when they feel like trying to get distance, when they feel like they're going to drop the
Oh,
dumbbells.
Yeah,
right.
right.
To make up that speed.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And then I drop them, and it's just like all walks of life.
Now you do that, the 3 of us, you get a handful of people in the same space and do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now there's that camaraderie. You'll probably get it done faster and you'll quit less.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, because you got people suffering next to you.
It's the competition aspect of like the CrossFit gyms. You got
Mhm.
somebody next to you that is kind of just fit as you, but I want to finish before them.
But we just do it as a team.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody drops out. Nobody quits. We go together.
Yeah.
If you
Mhm.
set them down, I'll help you. I'll do some rear lunges.
Yeah. But it's just, those
That's
are the
incredible.
things, man, where like you have to know that you can complete a mission when you get a call for service.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to see us show up and
Sure. You're wiping like the Dorito crumbs off your belly and off your
you know, you
face.
just woke up. And that happens.
Sure,
Right.
totally. I
Like
think you
it-
should sleep if you can.
A good medic can be sound asleep and then making life altering decisions for somebody in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
But you have to train yourself to be in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for knowing, understanding and being able to experience what you can do physically lends to confidence. It lends to experience. It lends to the mindset. Like, oh, wow, I did that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be crushed by a couple calls during the day because, A, you're training, but B, you did a gut check thing. And
Right.
gut checks are not supposed to be comfortable. Typically, they're not short, and they're mostly grueling.
Right.
That sounds like it would be a pretty
Mhm.
grueling experience.
That there's a CrossFit, one of the hero workouts, the Chad workout, if you ever heard of that.
Do you remember it?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
It's a weighted vest if possible, but it's 1,000 step-ups.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Ugh.
That's a long one.
It's miserable.
Yeah, it's a time-consuming workout.
Gosh. I guess we'll have to add that to our list of gut check crap.
Yeah,
Ugh.
it's good. I've
But
done
it's
it.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard workout.
It's a long one.
It's boring.
Yeah, I just did all mine in like sets of 50. So I had like every little dash, was it 20 dashes or whatever? I'm like, wipe one off. All right, back to one,
Mm.
stepping.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a long one.
What do you think helps you get through that mentally? Like, it's because if it's boring, that's a whole nother factor.
Right. For me, if other people are there doing it,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's when I would have to do it. I tried it. I did it in my basement,
Oh, wow.
but it was just super boring.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, man, I'm going to put Sports Center on. This is terrible.
I
Yeah.
need something.
Right.
That's awesome. Gut checking is the way to go. I think I've had some physical fitness tests in the field. But have you had anything like that you would say, wow, that was a physical task that really gassed me?
Man, so, and it's dumb, but as a probie, we had a little like pallet fire on this like behind a factory on Dort
Okay.
Highway.
Yeah.
And so we got done with it. They had caught a hydrant and they like pulled all those sections of hose off and no one said anything to me. So I was in full kit. I didn't have a tank on, but like full turnout gear, helmet,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And I was just out there in the heat, just rolling hose. And those dudes just like, well, if he's dumb enough to not let us back the truck up, we'll just
Oh,
Right,
let
yeah.
you keep working.
we're just going to let him work.
Oh,
And then,
jeez.
yeah, that wrecked me with a heat injury for sure.
Nice. I had a similar incident. My first year over in Pontiac, we did a super heavy training. I was on the Pontiac side, so it was Pontiac and Waterford. Did a heavy training. We had lunch, like BLTs,
Mhm.
not very nutrient dense. And then we caught this set of fires in an old elementary school, and like there was smoke pushing out all these windows. There was I think there ended up being like 12 sets. Just a ton of sets in this old, dilapidated school, full of water and mold, and like we were trying to find all these fires, and it was ridiculous. And I remember, like this was a gut check for me. I'm carrying stuff, new to the service, wasn't necessarily training like I was or I am now, but I've got a water can in my hand, and they're like, "We're going back in," and I think we'd already been in for 30 minutes, just walking around, crawling, humping things, and I was just gassed, and I went outside. I'm like, I need to take a break. And we had guys outside sitting on the curb, so I didn't feel like
Mhm.
I would have been screwing up anything. But man, that was a big gut check for me where it was so hard to breathe. I was just pooped. So ever since then, I just was like, endurance is the way to go.
Mhm.
Like do shit hard for a long time.
Mhm.
That's it.
We had a training on Grand Blanc City that got me like that too, and I thought, well, I do CrossFit stuff.
Yeah.
I have a Echo bike in my basement that I love.
Pretty
Nice.
awesome.
It's my favorite tool.
I got
Yeah.
the assault bike up in the garage.
Yeah, I love it. But so I've been using that. I've been, fit, like age-related fitness. I'm like not gonna run a ultra marathon anytime soon, but like
This guy.
Just signed up for one.
really,
Yep, end of the year.
wow.
I
Yeah,
know.
we'll see. Yeah, I gotta lose some weight.
All right, Goggins.
Yeah,
We'll
I'm
see.
far from that. Yeah.
But I figured out this cakewalk. I'm gonna make all these young dudes look stupid, and it was so hard.
Yeah.
And we weren't breathing oxygen, didn't even have masks on, but like it was not. They set it up like the firefighter challenge,
Yeah, yep.
except for not because they didn't want anybody running and hurting themselves or whatever. But
Right.
but raising a ladder, carrying the two saws, like high-rise hose pack on the shoulder, going up some steps, and then pulling the hose.
Right.
They had us pull two sections, like with a hand over hand with a rope.
Oh,
Mhm.
nice.
And then now on that second one, because I was going as fast as I could. So on that second one, I was just wasted.
Oh, you did it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez.
So you go up, you'd pull one bundle up, and then there's another one.
okay.
You'd pull that one
Okay.
up,
Got you.
then put that hose pack back on, and then going back down the stairs. Then I was just ruined.
Yeah.
Then we didn't have anything you could hit with a hammer, so we had to flip a tractor tire a couple of times.
Sure.
So flip that thing twice, and by the time I was like going to get the rescue Randy thing,
Yeah.
and I was wasted. I was like I was in some like the shadow realms.
Yeah.
But I thought I was gonna be like, I was like, oh, this will be cake.
Right.
Yeah. Been doing it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
find
dude.
yourself. I wasn't. They were like, one of my buddies like, breathe, man. I'm like, I am.
I'm
He's like,
trying.
he's like, you're not. That's your problem. You're not. Like, you're holding your breath for some reason.
Right. Yeah, and I think when we get exerting like that, we start focusing on everything outside of us, and we don't remember just you have to do that. You have to take conscious breaths because you start to work and things start to get out of whack. That's pretty wild stuff.
Job's a funny thing to get used to, the demands of like the fire service. I remember like the not first fire I had, but the first like real tough fire when I was in the city of Flint. It was basically there was entrapment, like a whole other details that won't go into it. But when we came to overhaul, like huge house, one of the newer guys was a probie. There's 2 probies on the shift, and they worked us. And I remember at the end of that fire, man, I'm like sitting there, I'm like leaning against this window on the second story. I'm like looking out. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this for 20 years. And
Right.
I'm 20 years old or something, like in good shape, worked out every single day. I'm like, this is different. And I had the sergeant there at the time. He goes, it gets easier. I was like, maybe. And he was right. I mean, obviously, I changed my workout regimen, not just pushing weights, it's doing endurance and stuff. And you kind of see the demands of the job, but it's tough.
It is
And it's
tough.
different. It's like, it's hard to replicate.
Yeah.
It is.
And just like you said, you might have all this experience, but like experience doesn't stay sharp,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So fitness doesn't stay fit.
Yeah.
You achieve it, and then it slowly dwindles unless you reinvest. But just like any skill, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be a has-been.
That's right.
Right.
Stay on top
I
of
will
it.
tell you, man, when I was in the Army still, we got deployed to go one like wildfire season to Montana
Yeah.
Okay.
to jump on with those guys. That is literally the hardest work that I've ever done in my life. And nothing will ever compare
Yeah.
to that
I
wildland
believe it.
stuff.
Those guys are
Like nothing will. That was. So first things first, we get there and the military issue boots aren't set up for that. So
Okay,
the
sure.
soles were just melting off.
Oh my gosh.
So they had to get us in like the
small
wildland
detail
boots. Right.
overlooked.
And then like, but man, it was such hard work.
Oh, I've only seen videos and I've never done it, so I can't even imagine. But I'll tell you, like just carrying stuff up a hill, not even an emergency scenario, like fire everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that ain't easy.
Mm-mm. That's how like Cal Fire. That's how that's a hack they put. They bring young dudes in and get a job of the wildland fire service.
Yeah.
And I think you give them 2 or 3 summers or 2
Yeah.
or 3 seasons, and then you get rotated into a station in the county, in LA County.
It's a good way to break you in,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
show you what
You'll
fitness
know.
looks like.
Right. Yeah. You'll
They
know
s-
if you want or not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And think of that from like from your perspective, bringing somebody in. If they put in that time.
Right now, you're like, I want that guy on my truck.
Mm-hmm.
At
Yeah,
least suffering brings out the best in people sometimes, for sure.
Absolutely.
So, real quick before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you. You're a chaplain too, right? So
Yeah.
outside of all of this, you do a chaplain service. So how did you become a chaplain?
Kind of had been out of the church for a long time,
Okay.
like from 18 to about 40. It was kind of the thing you go through, grow up in the Lutheran church, go to youth group, turn 18, and in that kind of denomination, you're an adult member of the church.
Okay.
Go be an usher. Here's your offering envelopes. And and around that time, I was getting ready to go in the military.
Right.
Kind of pieced out, and it was just a long, long time. Then I had a couple of dudes I worked with that went to Freedom Center Church, like where Desi goes and all that.
Yeah.
So I got pulled into that fold, and just out of interest, I started doing Bible college classes because I wanted to like be able to get like understand stuff differently.
Sure.
And then after that, after kind of COVID, we were like right in the middle of that first wave.
Right.
And I was like, man, I want to offer up something to some of the people who want to be involved. I want to pull them into the fold, be more of like a discipleship-minded group of dudes, more principled, and we'll do that. We'll incorporate that with Lighthouse.
Nice.
And so we're getting ready to do that. That's how we decided we'll have first responders and veterans only on Monday nights at my house. It's like,
Oh, cool.
so we'll do church for like house church, a smaller segment for those dudes, because like for me, even going there, if I've been working on the night half,
Right.
and I don't necessarily want to be in a room that's dark with flashing lights and heavy bass drops.
Yeah.
Can spiral you into
Sure.
a different spot. So I was like, I want to bring people in that don't have to explain themselves. They can talk how they talk. They don't have to be all like dressed up for the church setting,
Right, prim and proper.
for the church culture. And right about that same time, Don Schreiber is scrambling. Well, Dennis Smith was still there, and he called me in his office. He was like, hey, man, I want to have a chaplain for the fire department. Will you do it?
Nice.
And I was like, sure. And we got all whatever they needed paperwork-wise, and then it's just been that since. And since that started, it kind of incorporated into I'm like unofficially the official chaplain of the whole EMS system in Genesee County.
Oh, wow.
Which is cool some days, but some days it's just person after person.
Sure.
With
Do you meet like one-on-one or?
They just come up to the truck when they see me.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I have this going on. I'm like, well, stop doing these 3 things, you know? And then the next week, still happening. Like, did you do anything?
Right. Did you take
fix it?
action? Right.
No.
Nope.
But it's been pretty cool because I've been like looking into different denominations
Yeah.
and different, like trying to get a fix on the Catholic Church a little bit because I have Catholic dudes that come to me and ask things.
Absolutely.
And I'll be like, I don't even know what that is, man. Let me get back with you.
Right. I got to do some research. At least they're reaching out to you. You're like a coach.
Right.
Right. Kind of.
And that's the kind of the idea. It's just I live kind of a principled life.
Yeah.
You know, I have a different kind of operating system.
Sure. And I think that I would venture to say that's one of the key features that keeps you moving in the right direction
Mhm.
is having principles, having values, having a defined system to live through.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are missing that. So, well, thanks, Jim, for coming on and talking with us today.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
No, right on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I did bring you guys something.
Oh, wow.
This is from the old ministry, the old kind of operation, but these are challenge coins.
Let's
Oh,
go.
Let's go.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah.
What
Yes,
a
sir.
beautiful thing. I love a good challenge coin. Well, this has been the guest series with Mr. Jim Parkin of Operation Lighthouse, newly evolved into the operation.
Yep.
We hope to see good things and big things coming out of the Operation Lighthouse camp. We'll keep you guys updated on everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast here at Priority Traffic Podcast. I appreciate you coming out. I know Ben does.
Yeah, more
Absolutely.
than anything.
And from Priority Traffic Podcast, we appreciate your time and everything you're doing for your community.
I appreciate that too. I like the opportunity to kind of build the community outside the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's all about, man. It's just
Spreading the message.
spread the message, spread a good message, do the good work, and build a community. So, from everybody here at Priority Traffic Podcast, I appreciate you guys out there. You guys have a great day. See ya.